Sitting here to my right, the legendary broadcaster, Al Michaels. Good to see you, sir.
So I'm preparing for my 40-yard dash.
And what does that look like for you, Al?
It looks like I'll be on like a scooter. For me, I'm just, what can you do the 40 in these days? What are you going to?
Well, Al, that would require me to know that off the top of my head because I've trained for it.
Right.
Your
best time to this point is what?
5.94.
Okay.
In a suit,
and a
as
tie.
you know, and a tie. A few years ago, after I damn near ripped the hamstring off the bone, decided to get out of dress shoes and actually wear actual real running shoes.
Good.
And so I'm going to be doing that on Monday. Doing that on Monday.
Beautiful. What time? What time of day?
Well, that will be airing at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, so around 10:30 in the morning.
I'll be tuned in.
Will you be? Are you going to be on the course, or what are you going to be? I mean,
No. My course is closed until July 4th.
Oh my gosh, I walked into that one.
Yeah. Please. So I need any invite from any of my buddies who just seem to disappear when it comes a time for reciprocation. Anyway.
So I'm getting ready to run that over the weekend, for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital,
Beautiful.
as you know.
Great
Trying to
cause.
raise as much money as possible. And so are you going to be tuned into the Combine? I every now and then I get an email or a text from you that you're locked in a little bit, right?
I wouldn't say locked in, but I can't watch the whole thing. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Right.
But, how many hours of coverage will there be?
We should be raising money for charity. It should be a telethon. That's how many hours that we're on the air. I should sing. I should sing at the end, to celebrate the amassing of a war chest for some charity. But I mean, so what are your level of interest in seeing some of these kids that you're going to be calling on Sunday Night Football?
Because I want to see the top guys, obviously the guys that I know are going to be drafted in the first or second round, just to see what's going on, and I'll check it out a good part of the day. Just people say, how much preparation is there to do Sunday Night Football, and I tell them it's all year long. And Chris Collinsworth, obviously the same way. Chris running Pro Football Focus.
Oh yes.
So we never fall away from it. So it's a year-round endeavor for us to get prepped for our, whatever number of games we're doing. It's like 19 next year.
And we always feel it at the NFL Network, putting it on the air, that the 3 weekends of no football is people's appetites are ready for any conversation or anything that remotely looks like football. Since obviously Super Bowl 52 left us all on some sort of high just watching that game. Where does that game rank in terms of the Super Bowls that you've called?
Boy, I tell you, it's very interesting because the last 4 that I've been a part of, all at NBC after the first 6 had been at ABC, all 4 have been fantastic. Pittsburgh, Arizona, and Super Bowl 43, the game in Tampa was fantastic. James Harrison with that 100-yard interception return. Santonio Holmes makes the catch. Kurt Warner's in the game for Arizona. Larry Fitzgerald, had they won the game, I mean, that would have been as good a postseason as anybody's ever had. And then we did Giants and Patriots, this round 2 in 2011, which ironically ended the same way that this game ended, with Brady throwing a pass into the end zone for Gronkowski incomplete. Giants win the game for Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning. And then we did Seattle against New England 3 years ago, the Malcolm Butler interception. And this one, so Fred Gaudelli and Drew Esikoff and our gang, we walked out of the stadium in Minneapolis and said, boy, we're living with some rabbit's feet here. I mean, to do 4 in a row. So it's hard for me to rank them. I mean, I always thought nothing could beat Pittsburgh, Arizona. Then you look at this game. The great thing about this game, I thought, was that it was compelling from start to finish. How many games in the NFL are great for 60 minutes? And people would say, last year with New England coming from behind down 28-3, that really wasn't a very good game for 43 minutes. The last 17 minutes were pretty terrific, plus overtime. So, but this game, from start to finish, games have an ebb and a flow, and this one just had 60 minutes of flow.
And trick plays that we'll be talking about for quite some time. That Philly special, I thought when that timeout was called, we had Doug Peterson on the air last week, and he said that he was intending to go for it, that he just wanted to call timeout because clock was winding down. He had no thoughts about kicking that field goal.
Right.
What was going through your mind with Chris as that timeout hit and then the play that unfolded?
Right. Well, this has been Doug's MO most of the season, most of last season as well in his 2 years. I mean, he goes for it a lot on fourth down. I thought it was, a very gutsy call. It's one of those things where if it works, wow. If it doesn't work, you're a bum and a moron. But this is what football is all about. Everybody's sitting there going, wow, isn't that fantastic? But if they hadn't made it, they would go, what the hell was it? What was it trying to do there? So, but I think Philadelphia was a fascinating team to watch this year. I mean, the story was great. We all know about, Wentz going down, Foles taking over, Doug in his second year with them, Philadelphia having never won the Super Bowl. I mean, the stories were all compelling. So when you look at the game itself and the backstories involved in that game, I mean, that's as good as it gets.
Al Michaels here on the Rich Eisen Show. So interestingly enough, you were at the mic for Malcolm Butler's emergence.
Correct.
And then you were at the mic for his disappearance.
Correct.
Yeah. One end to the other. Throughout the week, what were you and Chris seeing that might have indicated what was going on with New England?
Well, we have access to practice. And the day we went to practice, he practiced every play. So nobody had any idea about this. I do know, Devin McCourty has been quoted recently as saying everybody knew about it. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. How did everybody know about this? If he's practicing every play. And the only thing I would say in retrospect, first of all, we don't know really what happened. I guess sooner or later, there had to be something there.
There has to be
something there.
Correct.
And he's, we had a shot of him crying during the national anthem, so he knew at that point, I guess, that he wasn't going to play. And then the game evolves the way it does, and they're getting shredded in the secondary. So why does he not come in? And the only question I would have is, in addition to obviously trying to find out what really happened, if he's not going to play, why wasn't he deactivated? Why wouldn't you, if he's not going to play, put him over here, he's inactive, and then somebody else comes up? That's the only thing that surprised me. And I've talked to a couple of NFL coaches as well, and that surprised them as well in terms of, if you're not going to play the guy, deactivate him.
And it's amazing because Malcolm Butler's interception took away what would have been the major takeaway in conversation about that Super Bowl was Belichick's use of timeouts. Mm-hmm. That we would all been wondering, why didn't he call timeout? Why did he let the clock wind down for what was an eventual game-winning touchdown? So we removed that. Now Butler's disappearance has led us to wonder, what was Belichick thinking? It has shaken the In Bill We Trust foundation to its core.
Yeah,
in New England.
Well,
still,
I think there was a headline in one of the Boston papers that said a couple of days later, "Hey, Bill, do your job. Let us know what happened." So this is, again, another reason why we love the NFL, why we love sports, because there's a lot of mystery out there. Mm-hmm. I guess the one thing that won't be mysterious is that Malcolm Butler will be playing for some other team next year.
Exactly.
You would have to think.
And knowing Robert Kraft as well as you do and have, what do you think is going to happen with him and Brady and Belichick? Or do you know if that's even happened? I know he was out here sitting underneath the hoop for the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game last week, Robert Kraft. What can you
Well, I haven't had a conversation with him about that, but I would have to think. Brady's going to keep on going. 40 years old, he's the MVP of the league. Tom loves it, loves playing. I assume Belichick is going to be back. Yeah, you have to assume that. Mm-hmm. They kept McDaniels. Obviously, we know what took place. Patricia goes to Detroit and all of that. But I'd be surprised if you didn't see the B&B boys back for at least next year. For Tom, it's fascinating. You watch him. He's 40 years old. He's the MVP of the league. Has another spectacular season, comes close to winning another Super Bowl, has played in, 7 of them now. I think if you walk away, the guys who walk away, I think the following year has been very tough for them. Could I have played a little bit longer? And I know some quarterbacks, through recent times who said, well, maybe I retired a little too early.
Right.
I think Tom wants to play out the string, but I think Tom would have to play at the level he's playing at to continue on. If all of a sudden he, became half of what he was, I think he would walk away then, but not right now. He's the league MVP.
And what is the scuttlebutt already? If you and the rest of the Sunday Night Football crew have even put a mind to this about who you think is going to be the first team up for Philadelphia, your first call.
Well, they've got a pretty good schedule next year.
They sure do.
Yeah, Minnesota goes in there. So you've got the likelihood of maybe that game being the opening game on Thursday night. Remember, they're in a division with Dallas and Washington and New York. So anytime you have the NFC East, that's pretty good. So that's half your schedule. I forgot who else they have. I mean, they've got
Carolina, right? They've got Carolina. They've got Houston, if you really want to mix it up. And Deshaun Watson, I don't know if that's something they do. But I know that, again, latest word out of the New York Times is that the commissioner is going to get set to fine Jerry Jones. And then the reports are it's not really a fine. They're going to make him pay the legal fees for suing the competition committee or the compensation committee or threatening or all that. You don't think they'd put Jerry Jones in that building so he would personally witness the Philadelphia Eagles raising a banner? I mean, that would be
awesome.
It could happen, but
it would be awesome.
I mean, it could.
Wow.
Every time, we love having the Cowboys on Sunday night,
Sure
and the reason is, people they engender emotion. People either love them or hate them, but you have feelings about the Cowboys. And I say we love to have them on because the ratings are great. I mean, there are certain teams we put on, and you're going to do a big number. And the Dallas Cowboys are one of them. So do you use them there, or do you wait, down the line? I mean, there are so many ways to, fold Dallas into the Sunday night schedule that we have a lot of options there.
So, okay.
Vikings, too. Vikings.
No, that's what you meant.
The Vikings, The Vikings go in there.
Certainly if Kirk Cousins is the quarterback there. That would be Kirk's first game back in the NFC East.
Sure. Yep.
Run back the NFC Championship game, see if it's a different result.
Could be.
That's something. Again, you're here all hour long, and last week was the Miracle on Ice. Speaking of engendering emotion, 38 years
frightening
removed. So when we come back, Mike Eruzione is going to join us. We'll stroll down memory lane.
Love it.
I'm told he's fresh off a golf course. Does that surprise you?
Or fresh on one right now with a cell phone. One of the America's guest, Mike Eruzione.
We will find out. Mike Eruzione will join us, and then we'll hit on some other topics since this is one of the first Olympics you've watched, just like the rest of us in a while. Mike Eruzione when we come back with Al Michaels right here on this edition of The Rich Eisen Show. Welcome back to The Rich Eisen Show. Last Thursday, it was the 38th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice, which it's called for many different reasons. Part of it is because of the call that you made, Al Michaels, on that night. Do you believe in miracles?
Nothing will top that in terms of my career. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of great events, but nothing could eclipse that. I mean, when you consider everything that took place around that game, what it meant to the country, you didn't have to like hockey to exult over what had taken place that night. So that's a standalone.
4-3 final score over the Soviet Union, and the man who lit the lamp to give Team USA the lead that night at the 10-minute mark exactly of the third period is kind enough to call in with Al Michaels right here in studio, the captain of the 1980 Winter Olympics U.S. men's national hockey team, Mike Eruzione. How are you, Mike?
I'm great. Alfalfa, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. He calls me Alfalfa. That a name Bob Uecker gave me many, many years ago. And the other one is Hoss. Remember, we always loved the fact that Keith Jackson, the late Keith Jackson, the great Keith Jackson, used to call everybody he's a Hoss. And then he called Hugh Green, when Hugh Green was at Pittsburgh and a great defensive end, he said he's a Hoss and a half. So Mike and I, we've hossed each other for 38 years now.
It's always great to be on the air with you, friend.
When was the first time, Mike, that you met Al? Do you recall that?
In Lake Placid. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up having the pleasure of working with Al and Ken a few Olympic games. After when I was a commentator. So, and then over the years we've run into each other here and there, golf tournaments, dinners, and like I said, he's a special friend, and we consider him, part of our team. Whenever our team has a reunion, and we haven't had many, but we always try to ask Al to come because he's like an extended member of our family.
Well, I feel like the mascot. I'm like the San Diego Chicken with you guys. I mean, you guys wrote the script. I just happen to have the coda on it at the end of the game. But what you guys did, I mean, 38 years later, people just still love to talk about it. And, the thing, Rich, is that Mike, goes around the country and, boy, they played that tape, and then Mike gets up there, and the place just goes crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, it's really been funny, Al. Especially now the last Olympic Games. Obviously, the phone rings off the hook. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to compare. Was this year's team like the 1980 team? And then I got an article the other day. The curling team that won the gold medal. It was called Miracle on Ice.
Right. Miracurl.
Yeah.
Miracurl. That's right. Miracurl. I think the article was.
Yes.
And you try to just nothing. This will never happen again. And it's not about patting ourselves on the back. It's just the whole criteria, the scenario, the Russia's 30-something countries, not one, and the amateur versus the pros, and it'll be an event that you just kind of leave it alone and let it sit by itself.
No, you have to. And then, inside the game itself, Mike, when you think about the fact that people always forget that you guys were able to overcome 3 deficits. It was 1-0, it was 2-1, it was 3-2 Soviets. You get the game-winning goal, as it turned out, the tie-breaking goal at the 10-minute mark. But the other thing, as you well know, so much of that game was played in the United States, and people forget the Soviets had 39 shots on goal, and the United States had 16.
Right. And, it's funny. I saw the game the other day, Al, for the second time since 1980. I'm in the process of possibly writing a book, and the author, a co-author, wanted me to watch the game with him. And I said, I really haven't seen it, but it'd be fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing to watch the last 10 minutes, though. When we took the lead, I think they only had 3 shots on goal in the last 10 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised at how well we played once we got the lead. And then the other thing that people don't remember, and I tell them all the time, is we didn't play just one game. We were behind against Sweden, we were behind against the Czechs, we were behind against Norway, we were behind 2 against West Germany,
right.
We were behind against Finland, and still found a way to come back and win. And
right.
I think that's just a testament to, we weren't lucky. It wasn't a fluke. We had some pretty good players.
Oh, as it turned, no question about it. And there's such resolve and such resiliency. And, when you watch those last 10 minutes, and what I remember about those last 10 minutes, 2 things, Mike. Number one, all of a sudden, the U.S. team begins to dominate after the Soviets had really dominated for the first, 48, 50 minutes of the game. And then I remember the Soviets were skating insanely short shifts. It was almost like they were out of rhythm. Guys were on the ice for 20 seconds, then they were off. And the other thing that people forget, Mike, is they didn't pull the goalie.
Right.
They didn't pull him because, and I thought to myself, and this was long after the game had ended, that they probably never practiced it. They never lost, so they were never down within the last minute of the game. But they never pulled the goalie.
Yeah, they never pulled the goalie. And the other thing when I watched the game was they had 3 or 4 icings in the last 10 minutes. That was very uncharacteristic of the Soviets. They never dumped the puck in the zone. They always regrouped and attacked. And again, our speed, our conditioning, our youth, all came to a head right there in our advantage.
Yeah. Mike, I think about so many things. When the Russians won the gold medal the other night and beat Germany, what the shocking thing to me was, in those years, the Soviets won constantly. So they would win the game, big deal. Maybe they'd congratulate each other, and then they'd get into the line to, shake the opponent's hands. Meanwhile, the Russians the other night, they were almost like you guys were in 1980. And I think I told you that in Sochi, I had the chance to interview Tretiak, who was the goalie who was pulled after the first period, and Mushkin came in to finish the game. And I said to him, Mike, there's that great shot when you guys are celebrating at the end of that game, and guys are all over the ice, and you're all falling down and on top of each other, and the great toothless grin from Jack O'Callahan. And there's that one cutaway shot. I think it was Golikov of the Soviet team, and he had his chin perched on the stick, and he had that look like, wow, look at that, look at what those guys are doing. And I said to Tretiak and Sochi when I had him in the studio, I said, what were you guys thinking? You guys didn't do that. You saw the American team jumping up and down, falling down on the ice. He said, they look like the happiest people in the world. We wished we were them. So here we are, 38 years later, and you saw a very different emotion on the part of the Russian team when they won the gold medal the other day.
So true.
Mike Garuzioni here on the Rich Eisen Show along with Al Michaels live. This is great. I just like listening to the two of you guys go back and forth. Mike, I do have to ask you, you said that it's only the second time you've seen this game. Why have you only watched it twice, Mike?
I know the outcome.
Yeah.
Is one, and number two, the last thing I want to be is sitting at home watching the game and one of my buddies shows up and says, "Mike, let it go." You know? So I have 4 grandsons right now, and I think we'll probably be about 3 or 4 years away from maybe watching it again with them and let them get a sense of what Papa did. And it's funny, Al, you'll get a kick out of this. My grandsons now skate at the Mike Garuzioni Center.
Wow.
The rink, but they have no idea who Mike Garuzioni is.
Hey, Mike, don't forget you once told me that maybe you haven't watched the whole game, except a couple of times now, but you have watched the highlight of your goal, because I remember you once told me you said, if I go home I'm a little down, I'll put the tape in. And he said the best thing about it is that every time I shoot, the puck goes in.
I've got more goals than Wayne Gretzky.
So I am mandated to ask you, when was the first time? When was the first time after the game, after those Olympics, Mike, that you saw it?
I had, and this is how old it is. I had a VHS tape.
Sure.
And it probably was maybe 3 years after the games. And unfortunately, the tape that I have only has highlights. It doesn't have the whole game. So I found out, like I said, when I watched with the co-author, that you can go on demand or on YouTube and watch the whole game in its entirety. So that was the first time I've ever seen the whole game. And, I know the game was replayed, but not replayed. It was tape delay. So all my teammates had a chance to watch the game after we won, because they all went back to the house with our parents and watched. But I was grabbed, Jimmy Craig and I were grabbed by ABC and did a bunch of interviews and did a thing in the street with Jim Lampley. So, all my teammates got to see it that night, I didn't get to see it then.
So last one for you both, Al Michaels, Mike Garuzioni here together, just a few days after the 38th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. You first, Al, and then you, Mike. How do you think Herb Brooks would take what we think of this team 38 years later, if he was alive today, what it means to everybody? What do you think he would say about that?
Well, the interesting thing about Herb was a hockey coach, and the rest of the world existed, but he was so driven and so focused, and he brought that team to the point where they did what they did. But here it was, I'll never forget, a week and a half later, Herb Brooks could have been king of America at that point. I mean, he had to be the most popular person in the United States. What did he do? Instead of going around the country and, taking all the accolades and all the rest, he went to Switzerland and he coached a club team, I think in Davos. Wow. Yeah. He was a hockey coach. And the other thing, briefly, is that when Sports Illustrated in 1999 took over Madison Square Garden and did a show, and they put 13,000 people in the arena, and the U.S. victory in the 80 Olympics was ranked as the #1 moment. And they had me introduce the team. The place went crazy. And Herb and I are walking down the stairs, and he looked at me and he said, "How could they vote that #1?" And I said, "Herb, how could they not vote it #1? Don't you understand what happened?"
Right.
So Herb, he was a hockey coach, and everything else was ancillary.
Mike?
Yeah, Al, I would agree in that 100%. I remember he never, when we had some functions, he never even came to the functions. He just stayed away. He let us enjoy the moment. He was the coach, but we were the players, and he let us enjoy every moment. And it's funny, the last time we were on the ice at Madison Square Garden was when we lost 10-3 to the Soviets, and now we're in tuxedos being claimed the greatest moment in the 20th century. So
right.
Herb was very proud of our team, and I think he would have been even prouder now knowing how special that moment has become in the hockey world. How many more kids probably started playing hockey because of what we did in 1980. And I've said many times, we might have opened the door, but today's players have knocked the door down. So I think Herb would have been very, very proud of where USA Hockey is at. And it started, I think, really in 1980.
And in fact, just to button up what you said, when I interviewed Trediak and we did that interview about you guys looking like the happiest guys in the world, he said, American hockey owes that team what they're doing right now. They They opened up the door. They created, what hockey is in this country right now, a lot bigger than it was in 1980. And it's all thanks to that team in 1980.
And thanks to you, Mike. I really appreciate you taking the time to join Al here in studio and your first foray here on the show. I hope it's not your last. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Al, say hi to Linda. And I'm on the 15th hole right now, so I'll talk to you in a little while.
And hi to Donna, who he always called Donna. He's married to Donna, but it's always like Dawna. Hi to Donna.
And Mike, again, I just want to speak just real quick. Speaking on behalf of the 11-year-old who watched that. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thanks.
You bet.
Take care, guys.
You bet.
Bye, Mike.
I get emotional, Al. I get emotional. I mean, it's 38 years later. I almost just broke down right there.
People say to me when they look at that tape, they start to cry. This is even people who weren't alive at that point for some reason. I don't know what it is. It was just the way the game ended, and to watch that unbridled celebration and reaction from the team was fantastic.
That was awesome. Back with more with Al Michaels in 60 seconds here on The Rich Eisen Show. I got to turn to the man who called that Al Michaels. What do you think when you hear that? You hear your voice from 38 years ago, Al?
It's almost third person. I know it's me, obviously, but I watch it, and I'm kind of like removed from it. I'm in the audience. You know what's going to happen. You've seen it, dozens, hundreds of times, whatever it is for me over the years. But still, it's such an exciting moment that I kind of get caught up. And I understand how people get caught up in it as well, because if you know the backstory and you know what that game meant, and then you see it, it's still special. You know what's going to happen. It's like, I guess, maybe like watching a great scene from a movie that you love. You can't watch it enough. You still get the same emotion. But for me, it's exciting. Yeah,
I mean, I've seen the movie Miracle, right, where Kurt Russell plays Herb Brooks, and I remember first time I saw it. I've seen it so many times. I'm on the edge of my seat, and I'm like, "Gosh, what's happening here?" Because I know how this winds up. Like, what's going on here?
And it's a movie. And Gavin O'Connor directed it. He did a great job, and I worked, behind the scenes with him, and put down some new tracks, some voice tracks to kind of connect the dots for them, with the scenes that they shot. But he did a terrific job. Look, there's a little literary license taken in every movie where you're just recreating what took place. But I thought he really stayed true to the story. And he had to fight his way through, because when you're doing a movie, I mean, he wants to stay true to what really happened. And you got all the, jablonis in the executive suite going, we want to make this a Herb and Patty Brooks love story. No, not really. So I give Gavin a lot of credit for how that movie turned out.
Yeah, and they used your original call in the film. And
the original, the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, the last 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah. There was a sound guy who'd won a bunch of Academy Awards who wanted me to redo that, because it's kind of a dirty track. It's like all these years later. I said, no way.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a word in between no and way, but
and it's funny, Chris Brockman. It was just great listening to you and Mike Ruzzi go back and forth like two old friends who are part of only the greatest moment maybe in the history of sports, just reminiscing it. And we go to break and we're all quiet. Then you say, why are the reason why people crying? Chris Brockman?
People are crying because they had to look at your hideous blue sweater throughout the whole broadcast.
But of course.
Where is that sweater now, Al? Where's that sweater?
It's a good question. It used to be in the closet, but I think somebody might have come in there and
took it.
Oh, no way.
Somewhere.
So now, is this like Rune Arledge issued? Is that what it was? Like
yes.
we all got together at ABC Sports and this is where we're going to put him in a blue sweater? And
well, I think the budget for wardrobe in those years was like $18, and then they had to get one for Dryden too, and then I had some shirt with a big collar coming out of it.
Yeah. And the fro, you had the afro.
I had the afro. Yeah, I had the whole thing going. I had every hairstyle in America.
Great. It's good. They're trying to get it in the back, but
fantastic.
I've had people have a bad hair day. I've had a bad hair
place.
Bad hair life.
Stop it.
Well,
come on, man. You're looking great, Al. And look at me.
Look at you. All right. It's going back.
Hey, we all got what we've got.
Yep.
And then, so what was it like for you? Said you felt like you're being a spectator listening to your voice 38 years ago. What was it like watching an Olympics? When was the last time you watched an Olympics?
I did I did Vancouver, London, Sochi, and Rio. So that's 4 in a row.
Right.
So it's been since 2008, I guess.
Okay, I see. All right. So
I did a whole bunch of them at ABC and then the last 4 at NBC. It was interesting, being at home and, you kind of understand what's happening behind the scenes and all of that. But, I'm very proud of, my network's coverage of it. We live in this world of everybody criticizes so much. And people say to me, they needed more stories or fewer stories or whatever. Everybody's got their own take on it. But, to me, the Olympics are very special. And what in the world is wrong with the fact that the world comes together for 2 weeks? And there's such snark out there about, now we go back to the real world. Well, fine. But how about, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks where people from almost every country on earth get together and have a good time?
Yeah, and part of the criticism, if you will, I found interestingly enough, just I guess bring this whole thing full circle, is that there were not NHL players out there on the ice, and now we're used to it. It was as if the 1980 type hockey tournament was recreated this time around, and it missed a little bit of the pizzazz that we've
I think
expect, right?
Since the NHL became a part of the Winter Olympics, and that was going back to the late 90s, the quality of play was fantastic. I mean, I thought the quality of play in Vancouver was off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
That was when Sidney Crosby scored the game-winning goal in overtime, beats the U.S. And so many of the Russians now, Soviets then, and the country broke up, and now they're Russia. So many of those guys play in the National Hockey League. So they had some pretty good play. I mean, Datsuk's been around for a long, long time. Ovechkin wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So you kind of missed that quality of play, but I thought it was compelling. I watched a lot of the Olympic hockey, and I thought it was pretty good.
And then women winning on the 38th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice.
38th anniversary, right? Great game, tremendous game.
It's great.
Overtime, shootout, and all of that.
What did you think of that, real quick? The shootout to decide a gold medal, right?
That's the one time they should probably play it like the Stanley Cup, playoffs. Let it go.
Where else are we going?
I thought it was interesting, though. The men only had a 10-minute overtime, but the women had a 20-minute overtime.
Oh, the women are tougher. Let's be honest
here. Find out what that's all about.
When we come back, we are going to indoctrinate Al Michaels in his final segment here on this show of this hour. Indoctrinate Al into start, bench, cut. I'll give you an idea. Again, start, bench, cut. You have to start one, you have to bench one, you have to cut one.
Okay.
And first up is going to be a steak start, bench, cut.
I'm hungry already.
Okay, very good. That's Al Michaels. One more segment with him on this hour. And then Shamar Moore of SWAT. And then your phone calls, 844-204-RICH. Al Michaels, one last segment here. Always appreciate you coming in and spending an hour. Great. We love having you.
I love the setup. This is beautiful.
I love it. Thanks, Al. So we started a game, what was this, about a few weeks ago? A couple months ago?
A couple months ago, I think.
Would you say it's captured the nation?
Yeah,
or we can say that and then defy anybody to deny it.
Exactly.
Thank you. They're not making any movies out of start, bench, cut.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. So, at any rate, Al Michaels, we're going to give you a choice of 3.
Okay.
And you must start one. Okay. You're Tom Brady, if you will.
Right.
You must bench one.
Malcolm Butler.
Oh, yeah. Or cut one, which could be Malcolm Butler, too. Right. All right, here we go. Do you have any start?
It's time. Start now. Bench.
Just sit down and be quiet.
Or cut. Get out.
All right, with Al Michaels. First one up for Al Michaels in start, bench, cut. Do you have any music, Mike Del Tufo, please? Thank you. Cuts of steak. Ribeye, filet mignon, New York strip. Ribeye, filet mignon, New York strip. You must start one, bench one, and cut one. Al Michaels.
New York strip is in the Hall of Fame, so that's the start. Filet is, on the bench. Mm-hmm. Ribeye is great, but the problem is it's so fatty. Mm-hmm. So, you're always watching your weight, so I love ribeye, but I got to cut it.
You're cutting ribeye.
I'm cutting ribeye.
But New York strip is in the hall? Is it
oh, yeah.
In the hall?
That's the best.
First ballot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
they waived the 5-year waiting period, too.
And you're a medium rare guy, right?
Medium rare plus.
Okay, medium rare plus. Wow, look at that.
Still moving.
Okay, next one up for Al Michaels. Start bench cut. Event to call. Super Bowl, World Series, Olympics. Start bench cut.
Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Super Bowl, World Series,
Oh,
Olympics.
he's thinking
I got
about
to
it.
put the Super Bowl as the starter.
Okay,
Bench. What am I going to bench here?
that's the
I
idea.
haven't done the World Series since 1995, so that's cut, I guess. And
Okay.
the Olympics are.
Yeah, you'll bench the Olympics.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But I'm gonna put the Olympics on waivers, but I'm gonna
Bring it back.
I'm gonna bring it back.
Okay,
off
very
the
good.
waiver
All
wire.
right, Al, we got a bonus one.
You have one?
We got a bonus one.
Okay.
All right, Al, ready? Golf partner. Start bench cut golf partner.
Okay.
Doc Rivers, Pete Sampras, Rich Eisen.
Since I played golf with all of these guys, you know, I'll probably start Doc.
I knew that.
Because Doc is extremely competitive. Pete's a lot of fun to play with, but Pete, he's been through the competitive realm of his life, so he's out there to have fun. And Rich, I'm sorry, but
I'm cut?
well, let's put it this way: neither of us would.
I'm fun.
Neither of us would make the cut. We'd be gone by Friday afternoon. Trust me.
Al's a crowd pleaser. You knew it. That's exactly what you
That's what
wanted
I
to
wanted.
hear, Brockman.
Wait,
Of
I
course.
also want to hear this. Al, is Tiger back?
Is
Is
he
Tiger back to?
Is he going to win the Masters?
No, he's not. No,
Come on.
I don't think a guy can come off that many back surgeries. And I think it was pretty. What he did in Florida last week was
Impressive.
Was good, very impressive. Too many good young guys out there right now. It's not like it was in the past when he was lapping the field.
There you go.
It would take
Just say
many
yes.
miracles
Just say
for
yes.
Tiger.
No,
No.
He's an honest man.
Right.
Thanks for coming in.
Hey, man,
I'll do
great.
this any year. You want to keep doing this Miracle on Ice 1 hour?
I live up the freeway. We
Hang
can
on,
do
it's-
it like next week.
Excellent. That's great. Well, I'll
Good to-
see you. I'll
good to
see
be
you
with
next
you
week.
guys. You bet.
You bet. That's Al Michaels here on the Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.